Now you've got one of the more interesting American stories. I don't know. There's so many Americans in the world, and I think it's unusual though to see, in my mind, an American who travels, backpacks, lives overseas, and I feel like it's typically a European thing.
Totally.
Kiwis. English as well, go to South America, do a gap year style thing.
Yeah.
You haven't necessarily done like a traditional gap year or anything like that.
No.
But you're living in Southeast Asia. And what were you doing there?
So you're totally right. And I've had this
Especially from Texas as well. Sorry to interrupt.
No, of course. And the thing is, it's not that complicated. Why don't Americans travel to Southeast Asia? Occasionally you'll see them out here, but like it's pretty simple. If you are gainfully employed in the U.S., you essentially have 2 weeks of vacation, right? One of them is always swallowed up by a graduation, wedding, whatever, personal something. And then you have what you use for Christmas, basically. So you get 1 week maybe of like being able to travel, right? You can't go to Asia. You can't go to New Zealand in 5-6 days. It's just not enough time. I mean, you're going to lose 2 days in travel, getting everything sorted. So it's just not really worth it financially or just time wise. And so you don't see Americans over here for that reason. And it's just a different culture. In the UK and Australia, people take a year off of holiday. And I don't know if we always kind of thought, like, man, are these people just all rich? Like, can they just afford? Are they rich families? What is it? But it's not. It's an expectation. You save up money to do this. Whereas I think in America, a lot of times, if you were to save up that much money where you could just travel the world for a year, that would be seen as kind of a total waste of money. You should be using that on a vehicle or purchasing a house or a down payment on it's really about like a kind of a possession accumulation or something, based around like moving your life progressively forward. Like you're just going to take a year off. Like, okay, you're not hungry enough for the American workplace, which is sad. It's really, it's not something I've ever really agreed with, but I have a really strong work ethic, but I don't really believe in that and just kind of living to work all the time. And so, our situation was I've always worked in outdoor sports. And so like sporting goods, camping gear, ski gear. My company, I was a representative for a number of companies and I sold to an area, just typical sales stuff. But our agency got brought in-house by one of the brands. So pretty much everyone got laid off. But it was a perfect timing because we were just ready to get out of Austin and kind of out of the US, just try something different. And so this wasn't a backpacker thing. This wasn't like a eat, pray, love situation. We just like straight up, we liked Kuala Lumpur. We went there a couple of years before. We just sold all our shit and made the move. And so it was just like moving to Denver or Portland. It was on the other side of the world. Nice. And it's really easy to overcomplicate it, but it's just not. Like people are people, places are places. Like you got to call a guy to get your internet set up and here's the plumber for this and here's a lease. It might mean nothing, but here it is. Like that's the thing. And so getting set up in another part of the world in 2020, well, in a modern day, not as complicated as people make it out to be.
I mean, I guess the big thing is money, right? Like how are you getting money when you were overseas? So you're Southeast Asia, you're working as a contractor? So what I did, one of the brands I worked with needed distribution in Southeast Asia. So I actually had met the rep who lived in Singapore years previous at a trade show. I hit him up, we grabbed lunch. And he says, you know what, if you want to sell the sports side of this, go ahead. And so, I did that. I still kind of do that. It's selling bike gear to like bike shops and just doing distribution. This is in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, this is across Asia.
Is this all like door knocking kind of thing?
Yeah. So I traveled a ton. And that was cool about it is like, I'm doing the Southeast Asia travel thing.
Yeah, sure. But you're getting paid to do it.
I'm getting expensed. Yeah. And it was commissioned. So I still kind of took a lot of the hit on it, but it was all validated in a way, right? So I'd go meet with clients and hopefully something turned into something and then go, check out like old quarter of Vietnam. Yeah. And it was rad. It's a really cool way to do that. And I've always thought like finding a way to follow your passions through your work is really awesome. I've always loved travel. So I've always loved having a sales job, selling cool shit to people that I generally like and getting to travel through it has been pretty great.
I think, that's awesome. I think one of the cool things that's come out of COVID is like remote working and like realizing everyone can work from home. And I think a lot of people don't know how much you can expand that to. Like you can literally, for example, within comedy, we know a few people who are working remotely who will fly up to Auckland, go stay in a hotel and work their job, while doing stand-up comedy and being able to travel on the road with it.
Yeah.
But you can extrapolate that even further and go overseas. I mean, not now, obviously, but you can. But, you can travel with a full-time New Zealand salary in countries that are otherwise incredibly dirt cheap.
Well, that was the other sweet part of it, right? So I would go to these places, but then I do stand-up at night.
Yeah.
And so I was able to do stand-up in like Taiwan, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore consistently because I would go over there for work. A thing or two got sold. But yeah, I would just be able to jump on the mics. And it was awesome because one thing I love about comedy, especially when you're traveling, you show up to a town you've never been to, you go to a mic, all your friends are there.
Yeah.
As long as you're just not a complete introvert weirdo, like, yeah, you're like, oh, we talk about our dicks on stage. People like it's, there's a commonality there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first thing that I think when I hear this is language barrier, stand-up comedy, Southeast Asia. It's all in English?
No. Yes and no. So it depends on the country. Whereas you have places that are, I would say, almost entirely expat focused. Thailand has been like that. Was started out that way very heavily. And it was basically, it's actually less than expats. It's English teachers doing jokes for other English teachers. Essentially.
Right.
That's what you saw in Taipei. And that's what you saw a lot in Thailand.
And these are Thai people?
No, these are all typically Western expats.
Got
you. Yeah. Over the years, though, as the scene has developed, I'd say in the last 5 years, you're getting locals going up. Oftentimes they're doing it in English. But in places like Malaysia and Singapore, where the English comprehension is generally quite high for the population anyway, it's typically in English, but they'll actually have nights that are in the local language, in Bahasa or in Chinese, Mandarin, or even Cantonese. And so it just depends on the night you go. But I would say even more so, the style of humor is different based on the crowds, right? So expats...
Not the culture.
Well, it depends on who's in that night, right?
Okay.
And how well it does, right? So like Malaysia, Singapore, they have no problems of doing very race-based comedy, right? Like because it's 3 races on top of each other: Malaysia, Chinese, and Indian, and then everyone else. But it's a lot of like, Chinese guy be like, it's a lot of that kind of.
How does he
stuff.
Be like, Aaron?
Yeah, exactly. It's very like Russell Peters. Like they love Russell Peters. They love like Fluffy, Gabriel Iglesias, stuff like that. Yeah. Who are great comics, but they certainly kind of fall in a certain bucket, you know what I mean, of style.
Waka waka, yeah,
right. Yeah, and so they love that, but it's really to me just a sign of like where comedy is. It's like I said, it's within the last 10 years. It's really kind of
still kind of immature,
totally
quite young.
Yeah. But there's some really cool guys that are doing some really innovative type of comedy that's kind of contemporary, like Western influence, but also very much its own thing, like clearly molded by Southeast Asia and like being a like globalized country dealing with it, because they love Marvel movies. So they could just talk at length about it. I know a guy who does a 10-minute bit just about how slow Black Panther talks. And it's hilarious. It's really good.
Should be a 15-minute bit.
Yeah, it really could be. Yeah.
Thank you for watching that clip. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that subscribe button on the left. And if you want to watch the full episode, hit the square on the bottom. To watch another small clip, go ahead and hit that square on top. And if you just want to listen to the full episode but don't have time to watch it, you can find this podcast wherever podcasts are listened to. Thanks. Bye.